So let's have a conversation about the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, right? And the Youth Enterprise Development Fund was established those many years ago, like we said, and what they've been doing is, championing the issues of the youth. We have had a conversation with a past chairman of the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, and this is Ronnie Osumba. And we asked him, so when we had a conversation about youth, what is it that the youth are doing? Are they able to access all these opportunities? So the government has set aside funds that have gone into this particular organization called the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, where youth are then told, you have a business idea, come in, you can access capital, because this is one of the biggest challenges that the youth have. You can access capital, go and run your organization, go and run your business, and then you'll be able to pay back. In other cases, actually, you're given as a grant. And other cases, you are given money so that you can start off. Youth Enterprise Development Fund also has, over the years, tried as well to build capacity in terms of training the youth. So you're running a business, basics, bookkeeping, how to make sure that you're compliant with the local authorities and the national government with the various regulations. Is your business well suited for whatever your idea is? And all these things that have been happening have gotten now to a point where the Youth Enterprise Development Fund is even launching a new strategic plan. And they recently launched a new strategic plan and looking at what it is that they've been doing, increasing their funds capital, how much money have they received cumulatively since they first were established 13 years ago. What are they doing? And so let's have a conversation with the current chairman of the Youth Enterprise Development Fund. He's Dr. Victor Mwongera. He joins us on the line. He's stuck somewhere in traffic. Dr. Mwongera, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. Thank you for the invite. And yes, I'm sorry, I'm stuck in a bit of traffic that I had you given the traffic update, and I'm really seeing it live.
Okay, so just give us now that your personal experience of traffic update. Where are you?
So I actually I'm on Likoni Road, and as you know, the construction that's being done off the turning of Jogoo Road. So I actually thought it would be a faster route than the traffic on Uhuru Highway, but well, here I am. So yes, I'd advise avoiding that route.
Everybody who's listening in, please avoid that route. That's where our guest is stuck. He's on the way. He'll be here. When you get here, you'll get here. We'll continue the conversation. But let's start off, first of all, with let's first understand, how long have you served as the chair of the Youth Enterprise Development Board, and what's your background, Dr. Mwongera?
Okay, thank you, Eric. So myself and the current board, we were appointed in October 2019. So we've been there for about a year and a half, and we've in that year and a half we have done quite a bit of work. I'm sure if you spoke with any of my board members or myself, they'll tell you it has been quite an uphill challenge to get the youth fund to where it is at the moment. Before that, I was actually, and currently I'm at Kenyatta University, where I also serve as a head of department for mechanical engineering. And before that, I was working with it in the UK, where I was based. So I was working within the University of Bristol, as I was doing my PhD, and before that, working at Rolls-Royce. So I think before that, then we go into the area of undergraduate, which I'm not sure we want to dive too much into.
I guess it's just trying to understand. So as doctor, what's your profession? You're head of engineering department in university. What is it that you have studied?
Okay, so I'm actually an aerospace engineer by training. I did my degree in 2005, finished in 2009. Worked for a little bit in industry, and I realized I really wanted to do the academic route up to PhD level. So I then enrolled and finished my PhD in around 2014. Now, after that, I worked in academia in the UK for some time until about 2015. I think at that time, I realized that I really wanted to come home. You know, all this training that I received in the UK, which is valuable, and there was valuable job opportunities. But for myself, I thought, why can't I take this training back home? And it coincided very well because at the time, Kenyatta University was invested heavily in starting and running different engineering programs. So I joined with the university to run the recently launched aerospace engineering program. And in my capacity, as I was doing that, because I had had all this experience and exposure out in the world, but when I meet the young people who are reading the aerospace engineering program, who are doing other engineering programs, you find that young people are really, really motivated, to make a difference. A young person comes into university and they're saying, I want to change the world. So it's upon us as the trainers and the leaders to try and give these young people the opportunities that they might not necessarily have. So during that time, I spent a lot of time mentoring and capacity building young people. I helped them to connect with people in industry. I helped them to launch their projects. I helped them even to try and get to market where they were turning these research projects that they did into businesses. I think it was during that work that initially I was contacted by Daring Abroad, where they wanted to feature some of this work. And one of the things I insisted was that let's have the young people in Kenyatta University also feature in that program, because a big chunk of what I do is to help young people. And I was very fortunate because the right people happened to be watching at the time, and they saw me with the work I was doing and thought, well, this could be a person who could help young people on a national scale.
Right. So, Victor, something very interesting that you said, that young people are motivated on a large scale to be able to make a difference in their communities or in the societies where they're existing. A lot of times, and we've heard this for the longest time, that youth then, bear the responsibility when it comes to, spurring on the economy and et cetera, et cetera. But then if they're also very concerned about, or rather motivated to make a difference, from what you've seen, then stops them? What would you say is the bottleneck, if there's only one, that stops them from going ahead to realize these dreams?
Okay, thank you. So I think one of the biggest bottlenecks that I've seen young people face is they don't have that life experience. When you get to a certain point in life, and as we say, I have seen things. And that is just a way of articulating that you've experienced, you've done different jobs. Everyone remembers their first job that didn't pay very well, but you stuck through it because it was building blocks to different things.
Yep.
And those pathways, a lot of people who manage to pick the right path that takes them to a point of meaningful impact, it is that they have access to a mentor or access to someone who can talk to them. And this person who talks to them, you might have a candid conversation with a young person that you think it was a 20-minute conversation, but to them, they pick out so much from your experience that they then begin to think, okay, this is how I need to shape my life. Maybe I need to focus when I'm in university, spending a little of time career development outside the university. Maybe I need to think about, can I be an entrepreneur? Or maybe I need to think about, is this a degree for me, or do I want another degree? Those kind of questions which they might ask themselves later and not at the right stage in their life. And I think that is one of the biggest benefits that we try to give to young people through university and also through Youth Fund.
Okay, now, given what you do at the university, commendable stuff, aerospace engineering, goodness gracious me, just wrapping my head around it. Because when you mentioned Rolls-Royce, I was thinking, I realized, they also make engines for planes. Yeah, good. So it makes sense. Now, let me ask this question. What is it at the faculty that you are aligned to? What do you do to ensure that the training you offer to young people fits them into real-life situations in the job market?
Yes, so that what you've raised is actually an interesting aspect of what we do and something we really focus on. So we work to partner with industry in many of the things we do. It's a fact that a lot of technical degrees, and especially engineering of late, have faced the challenge of, academia has sort of stagnated a little bit. And this is because there's not been that very real linkage between industry and academia. And that is what feeds into now describing how we teach and how we train our young people. So to this, we tend to have partnerships with a lot of the companies which exist in aerospace. I know the one that comes to mind for most people is Kenya Airways, the biggest player in the aviation sector. But there are also many other aviation companies. There are many airlines. We also have the maintenance companies, which play a big role, a big silent role in aircraft. And then we also have the regulatory bodies, which actually tend to hire a lot of these young people, KCA, KAA, even EBK, IAK, all those. So we maintain a conversation with all of them, which means that at the end of the day, the program that we are producing and the young people who are graduating, we can actually show them that there's a pathway and there's an area that people are looking for your brain that you can fit in.
Do you notice a difference between the people that you're training now, and also if you just think about yourself when you're a student, and what the students want to do when they finish university? Are they still thinking, I want to finish university and go and seek employment? Or are they thinking, I want to finish university and go and look for opportunities where I can also even start my own enterprise?
Yes, I think there's definitely a marked difference. I would say that when we grew up, and you know, I'm very surprised I've reached that point in life when I say when we grew up. But when we grew up, we used to think that yes, once you finish university, you go get a job. That's the pathway. And especially for engineering, you know, it was that you finish, you get a job, and soon you'll be having a big house and driving a big car.
Yep.
And especially for companies like Kenya Railways, you know, which you just had recently, where the engineers were very well treated, you know, they were like royalty. But I think the world has really changed, not just in Kenya, but globally, that formal employment, whilst it is a pathway to using your technical skills, it's not the only pathway offered to young people. And especially in Africa and in Kenya, where we have such a large number of youth workforce, then entrepreneurship has become a real pathway and a real avenue for young people. So we see more and more young people, even as I mentioned, young people who are trained, who have done a research project, and they generally see that this can be an idea that they can push forward. It can be an enterprise, and they can solve a challenge or a gap they've seen in the industry. So definitely we see that enterprise development, building a business is a much more viable option for young people, and it continues to grow every year. It continues to grow and grow and grow. And that is where in the Youth Fund we find that our customer base grows, not just from the number of young people, but also the number of young people who are finding this a very good path for them to establish themselves.
What's the uptake at the fund now? Are you seeing more and more people who come through, more and more youth who are embracing the opportunities to then fund, you know, ideas that they have?
Yes, we are. So when the fund initially started, the path was very direct, that if you have a business idea, come in and then we will fund it. And that since then had grown. So it got to the point that not just youth with business ideas, but also youth groups. If you had a youth group, they could take a loan and they could use that to develop the business within their community, so that youth group and that youth center actually goes on to provide opportunities and enterprise development within the area, you know, local impact from just one group. And now we are getting to a point where it's not just individual youth, it's not just youth groups. We had a point where the president gave a directive that let us promote the creative talent in this country. And to that end, we also even introduced a product, Talanta Loan, which is aimed directly at those young people who are in the creative sector. You know, they don't have the same returns model as a traditional business. And since 2020, since the COVID and the COVID pandemic and the effect on the economy, the demand has been even more, because we now have businesses which before were not our beneficiaries.
Yeah.
They were doing very well, in the hospitality, in the food industry, but the necessary period of shutdown and non-operation has really impacted them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just looking for a little help, They're looking for something to just help get them back on their feet. And that is also, at the time, we provided moratoriums for people who had loans before with us, but we're also looking to provide loans for those young people who they just need, a booster to get their business back to where it was, and maybe even continue developing and growing. So definitely there's a major uptake in terms of the amount of demand that we have at the Youth Fund for our products from the young people.
And if you are to actually put it in terms of figures, money-wise, how much have you given out, let's say in the last 1 year, to various youth enterprises?
So in the last 1 year, we have given out approximately 500 million shillings. Actually, we're counting that year from about when the COVID pandemic began, because that was when our figures really we had to even change how we are analyzing. But yes, we have managed to give out about 500 million shillings in various products, group loans, individual loans, even loans to the talent industry, as we said, and loans to expand businesses, and so as to help build the economy back up.
And what's the kind of amounts of money do you give to those individuals or even the groups? Is it do they come asking for tens of thousands, or is it in millions?
So we've actually structured our products in a method you're able to fit into the category based on what you're looking for. The group loans, which is one of our most popular one, is from 50,000 to 1 million shillings, depending on the history you have with us, how much you've borrowed before, and how you've shown you are able to repay. The reason that starts from a small value is because for the group loans, we have a very low threshold. The group is registered, they are endorsed by their local chief, and providing documentation such as IDs and carry and all that, and then they're able to easily uptake a loan. So that loan has a turnaround time of 2 weeks. So you can imagine a group of young people, 3 to 5 people, can just form a group, and within 2 weeks they're able to get some access to government funding that they're able to carry out their idea. Then we have the individual loans, and those ones based on the product, they go from about 100,000 all the way to 5 million. Because in that we have loans which young people can use to expand their businesses. We have loans which young people can use to supply government tenders. We have loans which people can use to even establish their individual business. And as I said, loans for the creative talent. So we have a variety of products that we offer, and we tend to change our products based on the demand of the young people, the current situation in the markets, the economy, and how we see how impactful these products are. For example, recently we launched a loan that speaks very much to the blue economy. It's called the Vijana Bayaria loan. And that loan is meant to help the young people who get opportunities to work on cruise lines. These young people, when they get offered a job, they're asked to do a myriad of tests, register a lot of things that requires a lot of money that they don't have, because of course you're looking for a job. And so we are able to give them a loan that we say that in order to do all these tests, because they're prescribed and we know how much they cost, then you need about 100,000. And so we give you that loan. You're able to do everything based on the fact that you've gotten that job. You go on the job, and after your first year in the cruise, which you are paid, a lot of money that you don't use, then you are able to service that loan very quickly. So you see, that's a product that speaks very much to opportunities that are available to a lot of young people in the coastal region who are able to take advantage of that blue economy.
Let me ask this question. In all honesty, how far-reaching are these services throughout the country?
That is a question, actually, that a lot of people ask. But
well, I've joined that group of lot of people.
Yes. Actually, we have offices in all 47 counties. So we have officers in charge of the county, which we call our county credit officers. And within that officer has his deputies. And depending on how busy the county is, the deputies can range from 1 to, I think, about 10. And the job of those officers is that they are assigned constituencies within that county, so that you have that accountability. You're saying that this officer is in charge of this constituency. And the reason we have that model is so that when we are looking at the performance of our products, and we are looking at, one of the things we look at is the equitability across the region, because we can't have equal distribution, but we can try to be equitable. Then if we see an area is struggling, and an area is struggling because of a particular county, maybe a particular constituency or a sub-constituency, then we are able to query directly to the officer in charge. What is it that you're seeing on the ground that is preventing young people from uptaking that loan? Is it the terms of the youth fund is not popular, it's not known, or is there an external factor that is preventing these young people from accessing this loan? And that model is able to tell us, of course, when we do our analysis, where our issues are and what we need to do to address them. So I think we have a good representation across the country, and we have a method of accountability that is able to pick up on some of these matters.
So fund has all these opportunities, has all these loans. For example, the way he's told us, group loan, where a group can just go and they can access from as low as 50,000 shillings to up to 1 million shillings. And all you need is register your organization, come with your identifications, get endorsed by your local chief. So just have a letter from your local chief saying, yes, I know this youth, I know the business they're doing, I know where they come from. That's enough. And in 2 to 3 days, you actually can access this money. Same thing if you think about individuals who think, okay, I'm starting up an enterprise, this is what I want to do. You can get up to 5 million shillings from the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, and then all those other products which have been set up by the fund. Where is all this info?
Well, and if you're looking at things that you would ordinarily dog people when they are looking for money to sort out their businesses or such, some of the big issues are things like security and things like this. But then if you need just a letter from your chief saying that you're all right to go ahead and do this, it doesn't seem like a process blocker at all.
Yep.
So then the question would be, why then you wouldn't have many more people going for this, against the backdrop of us knowing from different conversations that we've had about young people that one of the biggest issues, whether they're going the entrepreneurship way, was capital, funding. But it would appear that this is an easy, quote unquote, process to be able to get help.
Easy according to whom?
Well, I mean, what have we heard? You have a group of people, you need access to funding, you get a letter from your chief within 2-3 days, you have access.
Easy logically.
Yes, I mean, if it's on paper, of course it's easy. This is the process. But in the absence of a myriad of success stories of people who've accessed it, people who've been assisted beyond accessing it, people who've made sure that they have benefited, whose businesses have grown, unless there is a supporting narrative that tells us this story, then one has to ask how useful this particular youth enterprise fund is.
You know, I think sometimes I also now want to throw the ball back to the youth themselves. So we're talking about youth in this country who form the vast majority of the population, okay? Educated, have access to information. They're not in the no information age. They are actually in the information age.
Yes.
You have access to information.
Yes.
So if you get to a point where you're saying, but Sasa, you know, we don't know this thing, we don't know this thing.
Actually, youth do access information. Do you remember the time when we talked about an enterprise in Kenya that helps people acquire university degrees and postgraduate degrees?
Yep.
Those are online projects. Those are online enterprises. And one wouldn't be able to come across them unless you are online.
Yep.
The government portals that exist for giving people information, they are accessed by the youth. I don't doubt this.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that the Youth Enterprise Fund isn't viable, isn't functional. No. I am simply saying it would be good to also hear alongside what they're doing the success stories of what they have done. That's really what I'm saying. Yes.
That's true, and I agree with you on that. But my point in addition to that was how many youth know about these products? How many youth have applied for these products? How many youth are enjoying these products? All right. And is it because of lack of information? I mean, tell me lack of information. I want to throw it back and say, come on, boss. You have access to information. Even if you don't know what this Youth Enterprise Development Fund is, you have heard about it. You can research about it. You know that it empowers the youth. It gives loans to youth to access. How much information have you actually sought?
Actually, then one needs to ask for data and ask the question, how many young people actually apply for this? And of these numbers,
Yes.
how many actually are able to access? And those who aren't able to access, why are they not able to access?
Right.
Okay.
Victor has arrived.
Thank you, Eric.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Again,
Good morning.
right?
Yes. Again.
Thank you for getting here
Okay.
on time. It's only a minute after 8 o'clock.
Yeah. Let me apologize.
Somewhere.
I think
Somewhere.
you want me to apologize then.
Apologies accepted. Even before you apologize,
Yes.
we know the routes coming to this place.
Yes.
And we know how troublesome and how sometimes they are completely unpredictable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Victor, this is CT. You know how they say when they're going to slaughter a camel, they have to speak to it kindly.
Yes.
Because you know he's got a burning question to ask you. So this is what he's doing. He's speaking nicely before he goes for the slaughter.
Yes.
I must warn you in advance.
Let's start from that point of the number of youth who are actually able to access, first of all, information about the Youth Fund and those that apply. If you look year on year, how many youth apply for any of the products of the Youth Enterprise Development Fund? Let's just talk about now this 500 million shillings that you have dished out since April last year. How many applicants?
Okay. Thanks, Eric. So one of the challenges that we have, and I think this is where you're leading towards, is the knowledge of the fund. Not so much in knowing that it exists, because I think most people know that it exists. I think it's in knowing that it is approachable, that there are actually offices where you can go, and there's an officer who will give you a large part of his day into talking you through the process. And that is where maybe we are falling behind a little bit, and that's one of the main things the new strategic plan looks to address. So I'll give you an example. When we talk to young people, and we go to Kroeni, we go to Mwongera areas, we go to many areas, trying to just randomly sample what people are saying on the ground. We find that a lot of young people say, "Oh, wow, you mean Youth Fund is accessible to me? I thought that because I live in this area, I'm not able to access this thing. I thought that because I don't have a university degree, I'm not able to access this thing." So they have all these perceptions of Youth Fund, and that is one of the main things we're trying to change. And the way we're trying to do that is by really empowering the officers on the ground. Because like I said, this structure of officers, of the county officer and their assistants, those are the people on the ground who can actually tell you, when we come to this constituency, the problem is these people are nomadic. So you cannot have products that require people to be in a physical location. Or they come and tell you the problem with this constituency is that this fund is viewed to be for people who have connections to government. So because I don't know my local MP or MCA, I'm not going to get this fund, so why apply? So you see, that's a perception that really needs to be changed and needs to be turned around. And that's what we're working towards.
When you say working towards, what I like about it, it tells me that you have introspected and you've realized there are shortcomings here. But an enterprise such as this one will always have shortcomings because it is virtually impossible to meet the basic needs of everyone who wants to apply. That having been said, how do you gauge your success rate? And are the examples documented of the success rate? In short, I'm asking, what does a success look like?
Yes. So, to answer that question, I think just something to appreciate about the Youth Fund, we are a combination of a bank and an affirmative action for government change, government social positive change. Now, what I mean by that is that, we have, strictly speaking, we have all the same metrics as a bank because we do lend out to young people. The money is not free. It's expected to be paid back, even 0% interest. But because it is an affirmative action and it is meant to empower young people, we cannot have the same kind of penalties and systems that banks do. So that means that one of our key indicators is youth repayment of these loans. When you're talking about what is the repayment rate of a loan.
Mm-hmm.
And before we went into the COVID scenario, we actually had hit 88%. We were continuing to climb. But once we went into the pandemic and the directives, then the repayment rate really dropped. And that's where now we start becoming more of an affirmative fund, because it is not within our mandate to start demanding of youths, even though COVID or no COVID, you must repay. We must work with them. So we said, let's give moratoriums from March all the way to August for anyone who requested, so that during that period, there's no repayment, no penalty, nothing of the sort. And the second thing that we did is that after that, then now when people start repaying, talk with the officer who is in charge of your area to come up with the plan of how you will repay. If you're still able to stick to the original agreement, then that's fine. But if we need to restructure, maybe lengthen the time, reduce the amount, that's also fine. Or if you need to have an additional moratorium, then we consider those by case basis, because there are some businesses even up to now who are nowhere near ready to get back on track. So we balance between the two metrics. And I think the success, other than the repayment rate, our other success factor is how much we loan out. Because when we do loan out, after this, we've been in existence from 2007 up to 2021. So that's 14 years. So within that 14 years, we are able to know how to loan out and what to look for when we are trying to loan out to young people. So by increasing the amount that we are loaning out to young people every financial quarter, then also that is a metric for us, because we are actually getting these government resources set aside for empowerment of youth into the hands of the youth. So those are two of the major success metrics that we use.
If I just look at one of those metrics, the pre-COVID repayment rate of 88%, right? So if we're talking about the 88% repayment rate, that means there's a 22% default rate. How much does it represent in terms of amounts, and what are the reasons?
Okay, so let me start with saying the amount. The 22% is dependent on the areas, the regions and the constituency and so on, because in a year, average is about 300 to 400 million that we lend out. Now, during the COVID time, as we said, we actually increased to 500 million because of trying to create this impact. So it's about 22% of that amount, which is about 60 million thereabouts. But when we say lack of repayment, it doesn't mean that at Youth Fund we have said, no, now that money is gone. So we actually work with the communities. One of our strategies is that we have very close ties with county government and also with the security infrastructure within a region. So, our officers talk a lot with chiefs and deputy chiefs. They actually are, or we say they should be known by the county commissioners. Whenever we visit one, we take along our county credit officer and ask, do you know this face? And if you're not known, then, that's in your next review, what happened? And they are also, even within the regional commissioner, when they roll out their programs and how they're monitoring the region, they are aware that our Youth Fund officers are there. So what that enables us to do is that when the repayment is not on time, we're able to follow up with these young people. And there's some reason or the other. It's not the belief that young people will not pay money is actually something that we need to counteract, because they do repay. It's just that there are social problems within their area, unique to every scenario, that prevent this repayment on time. So if they see that we are willing to talk, that we are willing to say, okay, you're not able to repay this month, maybe you need 2-3 months to repay, so we'll track you for 2-3 months, but we need you to make that commitment then you find that a young person is much more willing to make that repayment. They are much more willing to communicate with us. And that's how we continue to build that repayment, so that we get as close as possible to 100%.
Do you have a training program, a sensitization program, where the enterprise actually goes out of its way to try and ensure that the people who receive money from it are, should we say, trained periodically on understanding financial matters? Because you are functioning as a bank, but a really good bank, an understanding bank, a compassionate bank,
A big brother bank.
a big brother bank, as opposed to,
Yes.
okay, so the punitive approach that many banks are associated with, yes, are associated with. Why do I say this? Because COVID has, I think, taught many financial institutions this very same point. How it is you need to work with the person who is your partner, who buys money from you at a certain price. Do you have such a facility for the people you lend money to?
Yes, we do. So we do have, actually within our mandate, lending out is I think the most popular and the most well known because it's a big chunk. But it's not just the lending out that we do. We also look to capacity build and develop the businesses of these young people. When they get this money, what should they use the money for? You know, it seems for a lot of seasoned entrepreneurs, it seems obvious that a loan should be used for capacity development. I mean, for capital development. But it's not something that you can say it's obvious to everyone because remember, these are young people who they don't necessarily have that business experience. So part of the thing we train them is just from the very basics of financial services, you know, what to do with this loan. Don't use it to pay salaries, you know, use it to build something that will help develop your business. How to be compliant, how to eventually grow your business and get to the point that you can now get an additional loan, a bigger loan, a top-up loan. And other than that, we also look to link these businesses to the market. So you can have scenarios like there was a young person who was featured when we did the World Youth Day launch. She's a lady who is doing French beans in the rural area. I don't remember which one, but she's doing a lot of work and she's selling to the local market and so on. So one of the things we were linking her is how can you now get to the point that you're not just selling nationally, but also within the East African community and within the African Union, because all these things are there. You know, the EU Charter, the East Africa community, the agreements, all these things, they're working to promote the international market. And so we can act as a very good link because we can get these markets and bring them to the young people. And the other thing we also do is we offer mentorship for young people. So that if you're a young person, imagine you're a young person growing peanuts in Narok area. And you're thinking, maybe I need to do some value addition to these peanuts.
Yeah.
And I'm giving this example because there is a young person doing that. It's not just at the top of my head. So the young person is wondering, what do I need to do to do this value addition? Because I hear that peanut butter is the thing, it's the craze. And so the young person is able, if they're able to connect to someone who is in that industry of agriculture, not even just peanuts, but just general agriculture and value addition, they're able to tell him, there are some standards that you have to meet, but you're able to do these things very easily. You're able to ground them in your area, you get the machine, you package, maintain a certain hygiene standard, and you can sell. And so that young person who I'm speaking of, he started creating peanut and he sells in his area. It's very popular. People there don't buy branded, they buy his.
So he's actually selling peanut butter.
Yes, he's selling it in the area. And for him, it's an unforeseen market for most people in the area. They didn't even think that we could have peanut butter. Those are things for Nairobi. But
so what are the activities that you did to help him move from just thinking I'm growing peanuts to the point of selling peanut butter? What did the fund do exactly?
So what the fund does, that example I gave Eric, I just want to say, because I saw him giving his story, and that was before I joined the youth fund. So I don't want to say that we did the work. I'm not sure whether we did, but he was a very good story that I liked because he talked about how he was helped by contacting someone in the industry who actually processes. But what we do specifically, we develop forums because we deal with all the youth of the country. So we can't do one-on-one. We can't take one person and link to one mentor. So we try to do as group as possible by developing forums. Before we used to do, the halls, the city halls and so on by county. But I think COVID has taught us people are willing to go online. So we've moved to the webinar aspect of it, where we bring young people together and we bring experts in that area and we let them have a conversation. So the last one we did was on this LPO financing for AGPO. And it was actually a very, very successful webinar as I measured it, because the young people came out and said that, yes, this thing is available. A lot of people didn't know it was available, so they're saying, I'm going to apply soon so that I can get a tender. But, others said that it's also difficult because they're not being paid. And, out of those conversations, and many like that, is where we had the president announcing that let government agencies begin to pay out so that some of these things can be serviced. So these sessions are very, very useful to young people, and they also continue to promote that dialogue so that we know what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong.
All right. So now with the program, I mean, obviously these are ongoing programs, and more people. I mean, just linking back to that question in terms of information out there, is this clearly an open invitation to say the problems that you have going into business as young people, or even ideas that you continue to look for? Is the fund openly saying, here is an option for you?
Yes, very, very much so. We're actually saying that for young people, if you are going into business, whatever that business might be, and whatever reservations you might have, because there are many reservations that young people have that might not necessarily apply, please do come visit our offices. We've tried to have offices in every county. If that is maybe not applicable to you, you're not able to access it, then each office has a contact point. And if that is also not applicable, then we also work with, as we said, we work with the county government. So even by contacting your county MCA, you can be linked to the youth fund. Actually,
I have an issue, Victor.
Is it easy, Victor?
When a new circle comes up, all right, you just drive around the countryside and you'll see, circle in a town
Billboards,
center,
yellow
billboards,
lights.
wherever their office is, you can actually see this is a circle coming. Youth fund, I've never seen. Why? Okay, so you're in a county. Where must you be in the DO's office? Why can't you just be, like that?
Everywhere.
Eric, you're going to be told
like,
it's a government program. So they have to be nestled in government premises. Yes.
Why
then you
can't
can't shout
you
about
just be visible, like in a
Actually, yes, they're shouting about it.
They're shouting about it. Yes. To Eric and the team, the shouting we can do is limited by the amount in our voice. We don't we spend as much resource as possible on the people. So when we do shout, like now I've come here and I'm going to shout on this forum you've given me, and thank you for that. But something like this now, I can try and reach as many people as possible. But these are the kind of communication channels we can use. So you'll find even.
Are you saying the law restricts you from spending money on marketing?
Or are you saying the funding restricts you from?
No, not the law. Actually, it's more the funding. We cannot, or not that we cannot, it's that our budgets, the way they stand, and we all know that we are at a time of, national, we are trying to reduce our budgets. So some activities we are struggling to fund, whilst other core ones we do have to fund.
Right.
Yeah, so if you imagine that structure I spoke about, all those officers, those officers have to be paid salary, and we have to facilitate them. This person ideally should not be sitting in the office. He should be waking up in the morning. He goes in the constituency or constituencies he's in charge of, and goes and visits people, speaks people, and makes sure that businesses are running. That's how he'll know a business is on the brink of collapse.
Sure.
So, you have to spend a lot of resources to build these people. And even there, we are very limited. We are trying to build them. But as a result, some of the other activities, we try and partner where we can. So, for example, when we say we're shouting, we tend to use the CDF funds, not us use, but we tend to partner with those who are using them to have activities, to talk about youth issues, youth matters. So when they have that, we request kindly, if you are talking about the youth, can we just slot in?
Can we piggyback on your...
Can we have 30 minutes to an hour?
Yeah.
Our officer will come, he'll have his T-shirt, and he'll talk.
Dr. Mwongera,
Yeah.
if all you were doing was giving out money and it wasn't being repaid, I would even agree with you 100%. But if we go by the stats that you've given, you're talking about people repaying. It isn't as though you just give out money and then it's gone. It comes back.
Yes.
And as you keep giving out more, it comes back. And the government adds you more. Is that not so?
That is true.
So How do you balance this? Because I would assume that with the length, okay, you've been in office for a short while, but I'm praying that you'll be in the office for a longer period. But surely we should get to a point that as people are taught to repay, and as they repay and as the numbers grow, your kitty will be bigger, so you're able to do more than you're able to do now. More so in terms of communicating.
14 years later.
Yes.
Yes. So you're right in that the kitty is growing. The kitty definitely is growing, and we are always doing more. The numbers that we loan out to continue to grow year by year by year. But you see, what we have done, and this is something that we've been very stringent on, is to separate the kitty from what we call our operational. So the money that is there for the youth, that growing kitty, should grow untouched. You know, there should never be a point where we are using money there to talk to people, and because of the justification that it's a communication to grow the kitty, because, you know, it's a bit of a slippery slope. So that is ring-fenced. So now on this other side of operations, that is where we are saying that just like many other state corporations, Youth Fund year by year is having to tighten its belt. So as we tighten our belt, then what are some of the things that we must do and some of the activities that we can reduce?
Surely.
Yeah.
A man who has had to sit before academic committees to explain to them that this theory that they've written down actually is worth the qualification that you are seeking. This isn't an easy task. What is so difficult about convincing the government that this issue of communication is something they must that they must fund more?
I told you. Camel talking nicely. Then it comes.
Yes, I'm seeing the knife coming. Okay, so in terms of now that communication, because, you know, I'm glad you've asked, and I think I have a defense for that knife that's coming, is that one of the things we said in our strategic plan is that, yes, we shall communicate with Exchequer and try and build our budget. But we also have to realize that the space we play in, a space of the young people, this is a very exciting space for many people, for donors, for NGOs, for people looking to do affirmative action, even for businesses who the owners are looking to do a little bit of self-actualization. You know, a lot of people are willing to have that conversation. And that area has not been such a big priority because, you know, in the past, you know, when the government is doing well, it's very hard to justify why you would spend a lot of money, time, looking for additional resources because, of course, you're being funded. It's fine. But now that little pressure is on us, and I'm going to say little, I know you're looking at me.
I am. And I'm waiting.
Yes.
I'm listening to you with my eyes.
Okay. Yes. So now we are working towards resource mobilization, working with partners. And it is both in funds and in kind. And yet those are things that are already showing good results. Recently, we had some officers of ours from the Turkana region who were trained by the ILO, you know, completely on the ILO's budget in terms of financial literacy, in terms of the savings culture and so on. And part of that training is that they now go and train the young people in the area. So you can see that's already something that we would have struggled to do, but it's working. Also, we have a
Dr. Mwongera. This is a conversation we will have. I hope next time at least you'll be able to make here on time, minus the traffic. Thank you very much for joining us. Time has run out, actually. It's coming to a minute and a half to 9 o'clock. We want to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. Thank you very much for tuning in to the radio experience on TV. Join us again tomorrow morning for the same. But the conversation continues on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi, Mombasa it's 87.9, 102.5 Kisumu, 96.0 Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9 and Malindi 97.7. We have had a conversation with Dr. Victor Mwongera. He's the chairman of the Youth Enterprise Development Fund.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
So, as you say goodbye to us this morning, and then you promise to come again soon, what is it that you'd like the youth to know? How can they access your services from wherever they are? And if they've got any questions, how can they get them answered?
Okay, thank you, Eric. So thank you very much for hosting me, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak on our forum and our platform. So to the young people, I think the one thing that I would say is that over the last year and a half, as the board has been there, we have really worked to listen to the young people. So I had mentioned before about approaching our offices. That is the primary point of contact. Offices in every county that they are able to contact us. We also have our social media presence. We also have partnerships that we work with our State Department for Youth, where all those offices, they can actually be directed. And we also work with the county government. I know we feel like it might not reach, but it will reach.
Okay.
And if worst comes to worst, then they can look for me also. I am on Twitter. I will answer their question. If they tell me that they have not been answered, then I will look for who is responsible and they will be addressed and answered.
Your Twitter handle?
At Mwongera.
At Mwongera on
Yes.
Twitter.
Yes.
And the Youth Fund's Twitter handle is at youthfund_KE.
KE, yes.
Okay, so if you've got any questions to the Youth Fund or the chairman, reach out to them. Thank you very much, Victor, for coming.
Okay, thank you, Eric.